Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing an album review. I'm going to be taking a look at this record today. It is You Can't Hide Your Love Forever by Orange Juice. So this was a review which was requested by Sam Glendinning, so thank you very much for requesting this. If there are any requests for future reviews, please do leave them down below in the comments. But yes, I will be looking at this record today by giving a bit of background information about the album, then scoring each song in detail and also showing you my vinyl copy. So this was the debut album by Orange Juice, released sometime in February of 1982. I couldn't get an exact day. So the history goes back a little bit before that though, to 1976, where they were founded as the they were called the New Sonics at the time, after the guitar brand, and their sound kind of took influence from contemporary punk music, but also 60s influences such as the Velvet Underground and the Byrds. They then rebranded as Orange Juice, and by 1980 their first singles were being released on the label Postcard Records, which was an indie label in Scotland, set up by a guy called Alan Horn and Orange Juice's band leader Edwyn Collins. It had the motto "The Sound of Young Scotland," and it was very much a kind of reaction against the a lot of the seriousness there was in kind of post-punk music off the time, and it would prove to be a hugely influential record label on all forms of indie rock and kind of jangle pop throughout the rest of the 80s. So following 4 singles released on Postcard, which were all quite successful on the indie charts but failed to gain widespread commercial success, although they were also picked up upon by John Peel, for who they recorded a couple of sessions in that 1980, and also supported the Undertones on one of their tours. So Postcard had arranged a distribution deal for their debut album with Rough Trade, which would of course be the label synonymous with the Smiths, and they funded them to go and record these sessions in London with Scritti Politi's producer Alan Kidron. Now he brought in a lot of different elements to the band sound at this point. So we had so we had some backing singers coming in to the fray on the album, horns and synthesizers, just to augment their sound. However, the band then, and I'm not quite sure how they did this, they then used those tapes which they'd recorded as funded by Postcard Records, and then gave those tapes to Polydor, who were eager to sign a new up and coming band. Polydor, the jump ship to Polydor Records for the release of the album. So yeah, following its release, it received mostly quite mixed critical reviews from both fans and critics alike, who felt that the kind of the heavy production did not match their onstage aesthetic or the charm of their previous albums, and there was a lot of accusations that they'd kind of sold out to a major label. In terms of commercial success, this was moderately successful, reaching number 21 on the UK albums charts, which would notably be the highest charting album, which was a bit of a surprise considering that their next album, Rip It Up, they had easily their biggest hit on it. Now, immediately following the album's release, the band experienced some internal tensions when, Collins, asked, the guitarist, from the recently split Joseph Kay, who were very much contemporary, of Orange Juice. They helped to establish the Postcard label. Collins asked a guy called Malcolm Ross to join, which made Orange Juice a 5-piece band, and existing members drummer Steve Daly and guitarist James Kirk, who had been quite involved with this album. He wrote 3 of the tracks on here. They were kind of disappointed at Malcolm Ross coming in, and felt that the band were I guess deviating a lot from their original sound. So both of them subsequently left, leaving Orange Juice as a 3-piece band to do most of the promotion for this album, using a rotating lineup of drummers. So I will show you my vinyl copy of it here. This is a original UK pressing of it. It is also, interestingly, it's got stamped there it's a promo copy there. I bought this at a record fair in Leeds. Beats quite a few years back, and yeah, it's a lovely album cover. Like, I do, yeah, really like it. And then inside you've got a inner sleeve which has all of the lyrics and a lovely picture, like, of the group there, like Edwyn Collins and, like, I would think, yeah, like, the two remaining members, like, of, like, Orange Juice, like, by, like, the time, like, the album, like, came out. And then here you've got the record, which is, as I said, it's on Polydor, but with a custom label, and it looks like so. Okay, so I'll now go over each of the album tracks in detail. I'll score each track out of 10, and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. So it kicks off with the song Falling and Laughing, which is a really great addition to, like, the album. It was the first Orange Juice single, like, released, like, in 1980, but kind of, like, re-recorded and kind of polished up, like, a bit, like, for, like, this album version. It's one of my favourite, like, Orange Juice songs. Like, it's an absolute classic. It's a real melting pot, like, of, like, influences with, like, a little, like, with, like, some hints of disco. You can hear, I think it says an ELO song, Last Train to London, which is a very kind of similar bass line to this on here. But then you've also got the energy of punk and kind of 60s jangle, like, in there, like, as well. I just really love the song, and lyrically it's quite, I guess, a bit self-deprecating, which would be the kind of, like, one of, like, the styles that, like, Edwyn Collins, like, would write his lyrics, and he sings, like, so I'm standing here so lonesome, what can I do but learn to laugh at myself? So it's a great song. Another little factoid, this was one of the tracks that current leader of the opposition, like, Keir Starmer, picked as one of his Desert Island discs, so yeah, he's got a pretty good music taste, like, there, so, like, yeah, thought that I would just mention that, and yeah, a great song, Falling and Laughing, an easy 10 out of 10 for me. Next up is called Untitled Melody. Now this one begins a little bit slower, it's very short and quite simple, this song, like, I suppose, both in terms of its like, arrangement, which is very kind of, yeah, like, run-of-the-mill, and lyrical content, essentially kind of tale told from, I guess, like, two perspectives about, like, a couple buying each other sun specs from the local hipster store. I mean, it is a basic song, but it is very charming, and I think it's a nice kind of second track, like, on, like, the album there. So yeah, Untitled Melody would get an 8 out of 10. Next up is called Wan Light. Now this is one of the three compositions on the album by James Kirk. Now his he also sings this one as well, and he's got a very kind of a slightly different vocal style, like, from Collins, a bit more conversational style, and like, yeah, quite direct kind of vocal on there. I mean, he's not the greatest singer, like, in the world, but I think it works, like, on this track, and I think it makes the song stand out. Musically, it's really funky, this one here. Again, it's delivered, it really makes you want to dance, kind of, this song here, but it's delivered with a very much kind of, like, indie, sort of, like, DIY, like, aesthetic. Although there are some quite nice horns, like, on it, like, as well. It isn't super polished, which I think is like, this album does kind of sit in, like, that kind of, it is a bit messy, but then it's also got kind of different instruments, like, on it, like, as well, which I guess some people could say makes it a bit more polished. But no, I really like this one, and this would get a 9 out of 10. Next up is one of my favourites on the album. It's called A Tender Object. Now this one is an easy 10 out of 10 for me. It's just full of chiming guitars, this one here, and a really energetic bass line which kind of punctuates throughout the song. It reminds me a lot of the Smiths song, like Barbarism Begins at Home, just like that kind of, like that propulsing bass line, like these kind of, like, these, like, catchy, melodic, jangly guitar riffs, like, over it. It's a, yeah, really memorable song, really, like, influential track, like, on, like, yeah, like, the likes, like, of, like, the Smiths, and I love how it kind of goes through a lot of changes, like, in, like, its length. It is I think it is the longest track, like, on the album, but again, it goes through a lot of changes, like, in, like, its runtime, and I just really like it. So yeah, for me, Tender Object would get a 10 out of 10. Next up is Dying Day. Now this is one of the more highly regarded songs, like, on the album, but for me personally, I'd say it kind of sits a little bit mid-tier, like, on, like, the album. It's not quite as, I guess, memorable, like, as some of, like, the others. Like, the kind of, like, the chorus is good, like, kind of, like, that line, like, like I'll wait like till like my dying day like is like quite memorable, but kind of like the rest of the song just kind of doesn't really stand out to me too much. I mean, you have got there's a nice brass section on it, but I guess you could say it's a bit over the top, doesn't really need it on there. And yeah, lyrically it's quite, I guess it's quite abstract. It almost seems like it's more like off a kind of like collection like of images, like I heard your bugle playing the sweetest music to my ears. I'm not afraid of saying I'm close to tears, will run away and I'll always believe until my dying day. So it's not really, you're not really sure what the song's about, I guess, apart from being like, yeah, maybe like moved to tears by a bugle, like, but like, yeah, it is all kind of like wrapped up like in like imagery and that. But I do like the song, but again, it's not one of my favourites on the album, so we get a 7 out of 10. Next up is called Love, Love. Now, this was the lead-off single for the album, which I've got the 12-inch for here. Now, this is also a cover song as well, originally done by Al Green. And it's a really good song, this one here. It's got backing vocals on it, which maybe grate a little bit, but they are quite charming, though. I mean, it's charming in quite an awkward kind of way, like, kind of thing. It's not like kind of polished, kind of soulful sound. It does just sound like sort of like four guys like in like their bedroom trying to kind of do a version of it. But I think that is what makes it like immensely charming. And yeah, this was the single. I love the artwork on here, but unfortunately wasn't a massive hit. This, it only reached number 65 in the UK, so a bit of a flop there. But a good song though. But would I maybe chosen something else to be the single? Maybe, I'm not sure. I think like it's a difficult like one to call. But yeah, this one that wasn't a massive hit like either way.
He took her hand, they took the floor.
Next up, so we're on to side 2 now, is called Intuition Told Me, Part 1, which is a very short little song this one here, almost acts maybe more like as a kind of like introduction to like the next track. Very simple acoustic track, you've got some nice piano like on there like as well, and like some kind of, yeah, charming lyrics like smile lopsidedly, decidedly awkward. I asked her, take my hand, take me an, and I'll take my cue. So yeah, you've also maybe noticed this one is like subtitled Part 1 because the full song appears on this EP like as like this single like as like a B-side, but it's a completely different song. Like it's just like Intuition Told Me, and it's a completely different song. So I'm not really sure like what like the link like between like the two is like, but like no, it's a nice song this, but again a little bit basic and maybe one which I guess I wouldn't play like in isolation off the album.
Upwards and onwards,
Next up is Upwards and Onwards. This is a really fun song, this one. It bounces along really nicely. Again, a lot of chiming guitars on it and kind of twinkly piano like interspersed like throughout. An interesting chorus line, and like the king's new clothes have fallen to the ground, but my ears are deaf to your brand new sound. I'm not really sure what that's about. I mean, I guess it's maybe that kind of someone changing and sort of becoming, I guess maybe acting a bit fake kind of thing, and kind of sort of like rejecting like that and just saying like, yeah, like I'm like not going to pay attention to you kind of thing because like you're being fake. And that's maybe what it's about. I don't really know, but like it's a good song though. It's a really fun track, short but snappy, and yeah, I really like it. So Upwards and Onwards will get an 8 out of 10. Next up is a Satellite City. Now this one is a slightly more forgettable song, I would say, one of the weaker tracks on the album. It's a very similar kind of beat and kind of bass line to like Wan Light earlier on the album. Although there are some nice horns on this and frantic guitar, it's got all the kind of good sort of like orange juice elements to it, but on balance it is just quite a forgettable song and a little bit of filler for me like on the album.
3 cheers for our side.
Next up is called 3 Cheers for Our Side. Now this is another James Kirk song like on the album, probably like his weakest one like on the record, like for me. You've got some slightly grating backing vocals on it, but the song is quite an interesting structure. It's quite schizophrenic. There's a lot of kind of changes like in time signature packed into like its like short length. Again, it's not the most memorable track, but it's interesting though, and like it's again like it kind of like you don't really know where it's gonna go, like, to be honest. So yeah, for me 3 Cheers for Our Side will get a 7 out of 10.
But I'll be a consolation.
Next up is Consolation Prize, which is one of my favourites on the album, and I would give the full 10 out of 10 to. This is just a brilliant song. It's very, again, full of like kind of like self-deprecating kind of parody. He sings on it like, I wore my fringe like Roger McGuinn's. I was hoping to impress. So frightfully camp, it made you laugh. Tomorrow I'll buy myself a dress. So songs like that, lines like that, are just like hilarious. And you've got like the last line like on it is, I'll never be man enough for you. So that whole kind of style, that kind of slightly more campy style, was quite radical, like, for at the time. It was kind of like a rejection of the kind of macho rock and roll cliche, and like Colin's delivery and also these kind of lyrics would become hugely influential, like on 80s singers such as Morrissey. And musically, it's really great. I love the kind of changes it goes through from like the kind of slightly more straight verses, but then that kind of that bit towards the end where it kind of like all slows down, and then you get this killer guitar riff coming in. And yeah, for me, it's a really great song. So Consolation Prize would get a 10 out of 10. The ultimate track now is Felicity. Now, this is a James Kirk song and is one of my highlights on the album. This is an energetic song. It's really fantastic, really well produced, this one here, and I just really love it. I mean, the last line that got it sums it up. This is the sound of happiness. I think that kind of sums up the song. It was one of the singles as well from the album, but reached a rather disappointing number 63, which I thought it could have done a lot better, because it is a commercial sounding song. You could imagine this being a hit, but unfortunately, it wasn't to be. But no, Felicity, a great track. And yeah, for me, a 10 out of 10. Next one, which is a closer, is In a Nutshell. Now, this is a more slower, low-key kind of closer, but very catchy, this one, though. I do like that kind of like the backing vocals, and the chorus is very catchy and it will get stuck in your head. Another quite simple lyric, like on this one here, which says, I guess it kind of says a lot, like in few words. He says, like on it, I looked deep within my pocket for the note you sent to me. To put it in a nutshell, you're a heartless mercenary. So, good song, and for me, like a nice closer. So that would get a 7 out of 10. Okay, so overall, this album would score 82%. So I think this is a really good album here. Very influential record on a lot of the music like that was to come later, like all sorts of jangle pop and kind of making kind of post-punk music, not kind of serious, like Orange Juice were quite important in the development of that, and I often don't get the credit for doing so. I mean, this isn't a flawless record by any means. I think there is some filler on here. I think there's some tracks which I'm not crazy about, but it is a great record though, and I think it does definitely stand up. Now, on the production point, which I think is the thing which most people kind of criticise this album for, I mean, for me, it is a kind of weird mix of being both underproduced. It sounds like an indie. It sounds like an indie pop album, this. But there are some moments where there is a lot going on in terms of the synths, horns and backing vocals and all that. So it does have a messy kind of feel to it. Even though it is well produced, you've kind of got slightly ramshackled vocal performances on there, and you've got kind of backing vocals and synths which are maybe a bit maybe not quite representative of the band as a live band. But I think it's a really great record though, and yeah, definitely one worth checking out if you're not familiar with it. So yes, that's become to the end of this review. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.